Hello and welcome to This Explainer. If you're thinking about buying a house right now, you probably have a million questions just swirling in your head. Where do you even start? How much is this all actually going to cost? And, what if I make a massive mistake? Honestly, it's enough to make anyone just want to renew their lease and hide under the covers. But hey, don't worry, you are in exactly the right place. Okay, let's dive into this. Today, we're taking a look at our source material to see how this notoriously chaotic home buying ordeal can actually be transformed into a perfectly manageable, highly structured roadmap.
Right off the bat, I want to validate exactly what you might be feeling. Let's look at this quote directly from our source material. Buying a home can be one of the most exciting adventures in your life. It can also be one of the most overwhelming if you try to go at it alone. Look, the stakes here are incredibly high. For most of us, buying a home is quite literally the single largest financial transaction we're ever going to make. So it's totally normal to feel stressed out. But, that overwhelm, it usually comes from the unknown, from just not knowing what happens next. So let's go ahead and shine a light on that. Believe it or not, this entire complex process can be neatly contained within 5 simple phases. 1. Pre-approval and preparation. 2. The search and offer. 3. Inspections and underwriting. 4. Understanding the costs. And finally, 5. The finish line. And this brilliantly illustrates that we aren't just talking about abstract concepts here. We are on a clock. Once your offer is accepted, boom, the countdown begins. You're looking at 1 to 2 days to get your earnest money deposit in, 5 to 10 days for your formal loan application, 10 to 15 days to get your home inspections done, 21 to 30 days for a firm loan commitment, then just 3 to 5 days before closing to receive your final closing disclosure. Add it all up, and you're looking at a 30 to 60-day timeline until you're officially sitting at the closing table. Having this mental clock in your head, it's an absolute game changer for how you approach this journey.
So, let's step into the very first phase of our guided journey. Phase 1, pre-approval and preparation.
Now, before we even think about talking to a lender, we need to tackle the absolute biggest buyer myth out there. It's the #1 thing that keeps people renting for years longer than they actually need to. People always ask, do I have to put down the normal 20% of the purchase price?
The answer? No, not even close. Honestly, if you're waiting around to save up a massive 20% down payment, you might be waiting forever. The reality is, 20% is just not realistic for most first-time home buyers. But here's the good news. Lenders have a huge variety of different loan options, and some of them require significantly less cash up front. Your down payment could literally be anywhere from 0 up to 20%, and that's determined entirely by what loan program you and your lender decide is best for your specific situation.
So the absolute most crucial point here is that getting a full pre-approval must be your very first step. And notice I said pre-approval, right? Not just a pre-qualification. A pre-qualification is, basically just a guess. A pre-approval means you've officially handed over your W-2s, your pay stubs, your tax returns, and the lender has actually run your credit. Why go through all of this paperwork up front? Because as the sources highlight, if you want to stand out in a super competitive market, you need to submit an offer immediately when you find your dream home. You have to show the seller you have the actual financial backing to close the deal. Knocking this out up front saves you an incredible amount of time, and it totally protects you from falling in love with a house you just can't afford.
All right, moving on to phase 2, the search and offer.
With your budget securely locked in, you get to sit down with your real estate guide, hash out your exact wants and needs, and get set up with direct alerts straight from the Multiple Listing Service, or the MLS. Once you've scoured those listings and finally found the one, making an offer isn't just about shouting out a random number. It actually consists of 4 main components. First is the price, and your agent will help you strategize that based on current market conditions. Second is the earnest money. Let's bust some jargon right here. Earnest money is basically just a good faith deposit. It shows the seller you're serious. And the fantastic part, this money is actually applied directly to the purchase of the home when the sale closes. Third, we have terms and conditions, which are vital safety nets, like making the deal subject to a home inspection or financing approval. And finally, the closing date. That's the magical day the title legally transfers to you.
Next up is Phase 3, inspections and underwriting. This is often called the sweat phase. It's a high-stakes portion of the journey where both your physical house and your financial profile are put under a giant microscope. First up, the physical house. You're going to need to hire a licensed professional for a home inspection. As a general rule of thumb, most of these inspections have to be conducted within 10 to 14 days of contract acceptance. They move fast, and they are going to check everything. We're talking appliances, plumbing, electrical, the HVAC system, the roof, the attic, the whole shebang. This is your chance to uncover any hidden nightmares before you actually buy the place. If issues do pop up, your agent will jump in to help you negotiate repairs or maybe even a lump sum credit from the seller before you hit settlement.
Now, while the house is being inspected, your loan is off doing something called going into underwriting. Let's just pause for a second to clearly define this rather intimidating piece of real estate jargon. Underwriting is simply the process that leads to your final loan approval or denial. Basically, your file is handed over to a professional underwriter. They use special software programs and do some intense number-crunching analysis to verify every single detail of your financial life. They are actively looking for risk. Which brings me to the single most important warning of this entire explainer.
Listen to me very carefully right now. This is why it is super important that you've not made any large purchases from your time of pre-approval to now. I cannot stress this enough. You are in the danger zone. Do not go buy a new car to park in your new driveway. Do not go buy $20,000 worth of furniture on a payment plan. Do not open new credit cards. And absolutely do not abruptly quit your job to start a food truck. Any sudden change to your credit score, your debt-to-income ratio, or your employment status during underwriting can instantly, and I mean instantly, kill your loan approval. Just keep your finances totally frozen until you physically have the keys in your hand.
Okay, assuming you survive underwriting without buying a sports car, we arrive at Phase 4, understanding the costs.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how elegantly it separates what you pay during the ongoing process versus what you pay at the very end. Your upfront costs are those out-of-pocket expenses happening while that 30 to 60-day clock is actively ticking. Things like your earnest money deposit, paying the home inspector, and paying for the appraisal. On the flip side, your closing costs are paid right at the finish line. These include things like prorated property taxes, your lender's processing fees, title insurance to protect your ownership rights, and prepaying your homeowner's insurance.
Just to ground you in reality regarding those upfront, out-of-pocket costs, let's talk real numbers. You can generally expect to spend somewhere between $300 and $600 for a standard home inspection. But keep in mind, this price will vary based on the square footage of the house. Also, that base price doesn't include potential additional tests you might want or need, like a pest and termite inspection, radon testing, or having a specialized contractor come out to scope the sewer lines.
Next up, you can expect to pay around $300 to $500 for the appraisal. Your lender orders this specifically to ensure the home is actually worth the amount of money you're paying for it. It's a safeguard that protects both the bank and you from drastically overpaying. And the really great thing here is that while you do pay for the appraisal during the process, by the time you actually get to settlement, this cost comes right off your bottom line of the total cash needed to close. And suddenly, just like that, we reach Phase 5, the finish line. You are clear to close. But before you fully transition from home seeker to homeowner and pop the champagne, there is one final critical document you need to know about. At least 3 days prior to your settlement date, you must receive your closing disclosure, often just called the CD. This document is basically your financial holy grail. It breaks down the absolute final details about your mortgage loan. It spells out your exact loan terms, your projected monthly payments down to the literal penny, and exactly how much you're going to pay in fees and total cash needed to wire for closing. You need to review this extremely carefully to make sure there are absolutely zero surprises on the big day.
And then, closing day finally arrives. You'll likely head over to a title company or an attorney's office. And who's going to be there? Well, it's quite a cast of characters. You, the buyers, obviously. The sellers, your buyer's agent who guided you through this whole thing. The listing agent, a closing attorney who represents the title company and ensures the legal ownership is properly and safely transferred. And occasionally, your lender might even pop in for any last-minute questions. You will sit down, sign a mountain of paperwork, the funds will be formally dispersed to the seller, and finally, you get the keys to your new home.
Navigating those 5 steps successfully requires extreme attention to detail, and that is exactly why having a professional, experienced guide is absolutely crucial. Our source material today comes from Carlos Carret, a realtor with over 20 years of combined engineering and real estate experience, backed by the top-tier team at Fortune Christie's International Real Estate. Having a dedicated advocate like that ensures you have seamless transparency, extensive knowledge, and a fierce negotiator in your corner from day one all the way to the closing table.
Which brings us to the end of our roadmap today and leaves you with one final question to ponder. You've seen the 30 to 60-day timeline, you know the 5 distinct phases, you know the scary pitfalls of underwriting, and you know the reality of down payments. Your new home awaits, but are you prepared to take the very first step? Are you ready to stop going at it alone? Reach out to an expert guide, seek out that vital pre-approval, and begin your own adventure. The map is drawn, the next move is entirely up to you. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy house hunting.